My name is Marissa Colucci, and I'd like to introduce Tahani Croft, Carol Fuller and Kate Eyre, who are our judges for the Older Reader category of the CBCA Book of the Year Awards for 2023. We are excited about the excellent books on the shortlist for the awards this year, and we'd like to share a little about them and the category as a whole. First of all, I'd like to ask you, Kate, to share your overall impressions of the over 60 books entered into this category this year.
Thanks, Marissa. This year was a really exciting year for the older readers, and we were so impressed with everything that we came across. Interestingly, there were a lot of books this year that dealt with illness and or death and the grief that was associated with that. Diabetes, cancer, invisible illnesses, they were all covered, and they were covered very successfully as well. We had some great Aboriginal voices represented as well. Poetry, graphic novels all came about. The usual teen themes, coupled with real life adult themes as well. So death and the impacts of death on the family, all members of family and friends, and the grief attached to that. Mental health, of course, has been covered a lot, and how a family can be man-made just as much as we create our own families. Mm-hmm. We had only three male authors on our entire notable list, which was very interesting. However, 2 of those males made it to the short list, so that's quite an interesting little statistic. But we had mostly female identifying protagonists on the list, so not so many male. And so it was such an interesting list to be reading through this year. It was fantastic.
Awesome. Well, I've had a look at the books and they all look amazing. So the 3 of you had the challenging job of using our specific literary merit criteria to select the 6 books for the shortlist. So using this criteria, what stood out for you as the best books? Why did you choose these 6 books? What were some of the overall themes and things that stood out for you according to the criteria?
I think that some of the main things were authentic language, settings, characters who were real. We could feel them basically coming off the page, and engaging writing. It had to grab us right from the start and draw us in and through that story.
Fantastic.
And in terms of themes, as Kate has already said, there was a wide range from historic persecution of women to modern persecution of Jews. There was the usual teen angst, friendships, body image, end of school, emerging sexuality, but more serious contemplations like death, grief, serious health issues. And the settings, we had the usual school settings, but also different countries and Fantasyland.
If I want to just discuss the characters or characterisation for a little bit, what we found this year was that the successful authors were able to create characters that were so authentic and genuine, and these characters had to express grief, they had to express shame, confusion, love, pain. They had to show parental love, they had to show sibling love, they had to show romantic love. So the authors really had to be very successful in creating those characters that were really genuinely authentic and able to express all of those things to the audience. And I think that's what our notables do.
And I think a lot of those do it with a dash of humour, which makes it real.
And lighter and easier to handle.
More palatable.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So now for the outcome of your deliberations, let's look at the final 6 titles which comprise our shortlist for the older readers category this year.
I'll start with Ask No Questions by Eve Collins, a very surprising little book, a very insightful and powerful story written in blank verse from the point of view of a 12 to 16-year-old girl. A succinct story about a family fleeing from war and prejudice to Australia in the mid-50s. it's a serious book, but also has a lot of humour about fitting into a new culture and new society. And to see a teenager developing into an Australian, a new Australian.
I'd like to have a chat about Neverlanders, a fantastic book. It's so wonderful that a graphic novel has made it all the way through, not just the notables, but it's actually made it through to our shortlist. So Neverlanders is a graphic novel, very high production quality, beautiful glossy pages. The text is absolutely beautiful, but the text is made through the pictures as well, which is the aim of a graphic novel. It deals with the really, really serious themes, but what Neverlanders shows us is the absolute beauty of a graphic novel and how a graphic novel can express really, really serious themes in such a way that it can go really, really deep and yet not impact or cause too much seriousness or heaviness within the reader. It's really fast-paced and just shows the power and the quality of graphic novels and where graphic novels can take us in the world.
And we had a second graphic novel on the shortlist, which is The Greatest Thing by Sarah Winifred Searle. And it does exactly that. It takes some really deep, really heavy themes and in a semi-autobiographical exploration, I suppose, of things like loneliness and friendship, coupled with some very heavy issues around body image and mental health and all of those sorts of things. And Sarah then takes us through this in a way because it's done through the graphic novel format. It's not as, it's very intense, but it's not perhaps as difficult to digest as it can be in just prose. So it's a spectacular piece of work. It's beautifully drawn using a variety of art styles and just works so beautifully together as a whole.
Who's next?
Well, I can go on to Completely Normal and Other Lies by Biffy James. This is a book about discovering your true self and being true to yourself. Most teenagers feel that they're hiding behind a face, they're hiding themselves, and this is an exploration of the character trying to come to bring her inner self out to face the front. There's death in this and the grief that's attached to that within the high school world and the high school friendship groups. It does deal with other themes of male dominance and a lot of mental health. The mental health is dealt with in a way that it's very positive and very normal to seek help with a psychologist or with counselling, and it doesn't have to be a diagnosed mental health condition. You can just go and speak to a counsellor because you need to. So it really normalises a lot of the mental health, the counselling experience. It's a great book because it deals with some really heavy stuff, but it does it in such a way that it actually has humour as well. So you actually feel quite nice reading it, despite the themes.
We also had The Other Side of Tomorrow by Hayley Lawrence, which takes us on a heartbreakingly human journey of life, death, and what it means to be in between. Our protagonist she has cancer. She fought cancer in childhood and then it comes back again. And we look at her journey through authentic characters who really take us on a genuine exploration of love and grief with intense emotions and themes that are handled so deftly by the author and completely without artifice. And again, you have that light element of humour that feels just so realistic for us and helps us to engage with what is really a really heavy story in a much more palatable way.
Mm-hmm. And for something entirely different, What We All Saw by Mike Lucas, one of our male authors. This is about the power of superstition, folklore, prejudice, written into a thrilling, tense story about 4 generations. It involves the First World War, it involves witches. It's set in England, surprisingly, but very authentically. And through a system of various storytelling, we get this picture of how prejudice and power can be very, very destructive. It's told unusually from an adult's point of view, looking back into his childhood. And unlike a lot of the books that we had in our reading this year, there are 4 protagonists and a blind girl and 3 other boys. An exciting, gripping, often tense story.
Thank you so much for sharing about all of the shortlisted titles this year in the older readers category. If people would like to find out more information, there is some great links on the CBCA website. Please go there and you will find some links to more information about all of these books, and you'll be able to see the complete notable list as well.